The Bad Batch has been one of the most pleasant surprises for me when it comes to recent Star Wars television shows. It was a property that I pretty much immediately waved off as uninteresting, but has ended up being a great continuation of the Clone Wars, and we got that in spades with the most recent episode. That was Season 2, Episode 11, Tipping Point. So we're going to discuss all of that today with, of course, full spoilers. Before we do, though, I just want to take a second to talk about Episode 13. To me, easily one of the most beautiful pieces of animation Star Wars has ever put out. The vistas, the lighting, pretty much everything was just top notch. I actually really enjoyed the episode as well. Some people called it filler. I thought it was a good look into what the Bad Batch's life could look like if they actually settled down. They gave Omega the life she deserved. I think we'll probably see now in the season finale that that doesn't happen, and it'll be a bit of a painful look back. Sort of like the Widow with The Mandalorian Season 1. But yeah, moving back to Tipping Point, it was kind of an interesting episode because it came out obviously the same time as The Mandalorian's most recent episode. They were both the same length, and whereas I thought this most recent Mando episode was one of the weaker in the series, I thought Tipping Point was extremely strong. So I guess that's one of the benefits of doing the double releases, but it's actually a couple of times this season that the Bad Batch has somewhat overshined The Mandalorian, and I know that's kind of crazy to say. Anyway, the episode started off in a really interesting way. Obviously, a few episodes ago, we saw Echo split off from the rest of the Bad Batch. We jump in here midway through a mission, a beautiful updated new Gazanti model, I'm guessing from the Eris episode of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. But yeah, we jump right into this mission, and it's sort of an interesting way to split up the two crews without it feeling overwhelming or without the show unnecessarily having to do backtrack. Like, we can understand pretty quickly, yeah, Echo has been doing this, and the clone network that we've seen established now with Senator Chuchi is far more expansive than what I expected, and really leads me to believe that something very, very tragic is going to happen with these clones. We also see that Tarkin and others within the Empire simply want to start exterminating the clones, whereas Dr. Hemlock sees some perhaps even more nefarious purpose for them and wants them sent off to Mount Tantus. Speaking of, Mount Tantus is such a cool location. It fits in perfectly for the Bad Batch, especially with the rumored appearance of Grand Admiral Thrawn. My friend Corey pointed out last episode how there were some cool contrasts visually between the small sort of paradise island the Bad Batch was staying on and then the shots of Mount Tantus. I really liked that. But I also thought the Zillobeast episode did a really good job of showing that, yeah, the whole Zillobeast getting out, that's a small crisis, but that's certainly not all that's going on at Mount Tantus. That's one of many projects and probably one of the least nefarious ones. This episode I thought did a really good job of playing that up, really showing how important Mount Tantus is to the Empire. We see the one Imperial officer who shocks himself to death rather than be interrogated by the clones. The Empire is like dispatching Venators to keep the location safe. Just really interesting. And I guess that brings me to my next question. How is the Bad Batch going to presumably visit Mount Tantus in the next episode without creating this weird dilemma? If Mount Tantus exists and it's been discovered, can it still be this top secret place where the Empire is doing all these research programs, perhaps even leading to Palpatine's resurrection? I say that because if all of that happens at Mount Tantus, or even worse things, and the Bad Batch didn't say anything, not a great look. It would sort of be weird if the Empire's secrets were in the hands of the, well, good guys and nothing happened about it. But in Star Wars Legends, Mount Tantus wasn't really famed for what actually happened there while it was active. It was much more well known for what happened afterwards. Thrawn, of course, discovers Mount Tantus during his campaign. He uses it as the center of his new cloning operation. You get the idea. I will say, though, the Bad Batch visiting the location could end up turning the pressure and the heat on them up even further. We know that they're being specifically targeted because they do have Omega. However, if they visit Mount Tantus, then you'll have even greater Imperial powers trying to get them to maintain its secret. That being said, I may be getting ahead of myself here. I really liked how Echo brought the team back together, but it's not even clear that there's enough information to find out where Mount Tantus physically is. We know that they've learned now about the Advanced Science Division. I like the fact that Dr. Royce was an expelled Republic scientist brought back into the fold. They have some details, including prisoner transfer logs, but the location is explicitly said to be a secret. However, we do also know that they've received now the message from Crosshair, so maybe that could be enough to lead them there. I don't really know, but it's clear based on the last scene that they are going to spring what they see as a potential trap. Either way, an episode that I found myself really enjoying, and it's pretty much the penultimate episode of the season. Yes, there is a 2-part finale, but both parts are being released next week, and unfortunately I'm away. My breakdown will be a little bit late, but if it's as good as what we got at the end of season 1, I think we're in for a real treat. I don't know if there's going to be anything as earth-shattering as the bombarding of Camino, but there very well could be. And I've got to say, the season, yes, has had some slower portions, but I've really enjoyed it overall. Alright, so today's hashtag Ask Ek question of the day, which I'm going to throw in because this was a bit of a shorter review, comes from Lightspeed Victory. He's got an interesting one. Do Force-sensitive beings have longer lives than those who aren't Force-sensitive? And I think that's an interesting one. On average, I would say no. Just touching the Force doesn't necessarily extend your lifespan. However, there are clearly techniques which can. In the dramatic end, you have beings who have lived for thousands of years who can escape death, as Palpatine does in both canon and Legends, but also things like Force meditation. I imagine that helps. In Star Wars Legends, we also see several occasions where disease is held off directly by the Force. There's one occasion, I believe in the Truce at Bakura, where Luke Skywalker kills a small parasite in his body. During the New Jedi Order, Mara Jade is the only one who can survive from the Coom spores. That is their name. So I think if you made a concerted effort to use the Force, yeah, you could live longer. On average, though, would just somebody who used the Force on a day-to-day basis survive more? I don't think so. That's just my opinion, though. As far as I know, there haven't really been any real determinations on this point. One interesting thing, though, is that there have been Star Wars Legends works, especially early ones, which give humans very long lives. I wish I could remember the exact quote. I know I've talked about it on the channel before. Either way, I believe it was the Essential Atlas also stated that the average human lifespan was about 120 years old, so sort of a very dramatic version of real-life humans. Then you get into cybernetics, lots of other nonsense, and yeah, they could be pretty damn long-lived. The far bigger variable, however, would just be species. There are obviously many very long species in Star Wars. The Hutts, Wookiees, Yoda's species, get the idea. But guys, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on everything I mentioned and more down below.